Managing properties is hard enough. Your bookkeeping shouldn't be. That's why I tested the best rental property bookkeeping software. But does TurboTenant really simplify it all, or is Quicken a better shot? Here's what I discovered. Now, before we dive into the features, I want to start where most of us end up after signing up for a new property management bookkeeping software, and that's the reviews. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that bookkeeping property management companies don't say like all the negative things on their marketing pages. So I had to find out what they actually were like in real life. So I had to dig into the user experiences and reviews with both TurboTenant and Quicken Business and Personal, starting with the rough stuff, the one-star reviews. And the biggest complaint that I found with TurboTenant is of this guy who said that he just couldn't stand all the ads and that he hadn't even used the platform much because he couldn't get an ad off of his screen. And look, I get the frustration. You want to manage your rental, not wrestle pop-ups, but here's the thing. I've been using TurboTenant extensively, and I haven't once been bombarded with intrusive ads. I genuinely think this might be a one-off issue or a misunderstanding of a prompt on the dashboard, but most likely he was reacting to a feature highlight or an upsell that looked like an ad, I think. And just all the feedback I scanned too, this exact complaint didn't really repeat. And on the flip side, many users are genuinely thrilled with TurboTenant. One user shared that TurboTenant helps turn him into a landlord, and that it was easy for him, not overwhelming. And that really hit home for me because, like, I remember being in those same shoes and trying to navigate everything in the beginning. Another landlord praised how easy and convenient it is to use and how tenants felt safer providing their info through a secure platform. And honestly, that tracks, yeah. So while one frustrated reviewer definitely had a tough time, most landlords using TurboTenant are not only sticking with it, they're recommending it. Now, when I turned over to Quicken, one reviewer said something that actually made me stop and think. He said that he had no big problem with Quicken except the cost. He and his wife, aged 85 and 82, were on a fixed income and just used Quicken as a simple checkbook. With the rising subscription cost, they said they had to cancel. But I totally understand where he's coming from. If you're only using like a fraction of a product's features, paying a full subscription price can feel like overkill. But here's the thing. Quicken Business and Personal wasn't really built for ultra basic use. It's a full-blown financial management system. So while it might not be the best value for someone just trying to balance a checkbook, for rental property owners who need to manage income, expenses, budgets, and investments all in one place, Quicken really shines for that, and most users seem to agree. One longtime user shared how he switched from Microsoft Money and had no issues transferring his data to Quicken. He's been using it for 15 years and still calls it reliable. Another reviewer said Quicken helps keep her bookkeeping in order, reminds her to pay bills, and to keep track of automatic charges, which, if you're managing multiple rental units, is really kind of crucial. So, when I actually started testing both of these rental property bookkeeping platforms, I had one main goal in mind. Simplify every part of rental property bookkeeping without having to be an accountant, right? All right, let's start with TurboTenant. From finding tenants you trust to collecting rent and managing maintenance and everything in between, TurboTenant helps you self-manage rentals really easily. One thing that stood out to me was how comprehensive yet beginner-friendly the whole setup of this bookkeeping software for rental properties felt. So let's say take maintenance, for example. You can coordinate repairs your own way, either manually with local pros through their Thumbtack partnership, or you can let TurboTenant's Maintenance Plus with Lula handle everything automatically. Also, adding your first property is surprisingly simple. Whether you're on a laptop or your phone, you could just add the address, upload photos, set the rent details, and then boom, you're just ready to market your unit across dozens of these listing sites. I tested this with a 2-bed rental in Phoenix, and I got a few applications within 24 hours. The whole process took like maybe 15 minutes or so. Another feature that I think really helped me delegate some of the work itself was access management. So with this, I could invite an assistant to help with messaging and scheduling viewings without giving up full control of everything in my account. So that's really big if you're scaling or even just need a hand if you're like traveling or doing something. And when it comes to leases, TurboTenant makes lease creation super straightforward. You set a lease profile, you add your tenant, you plug in the rental terms, and you send it out for e-signature. I've signed leases before using like PDFs and email chains, but this is way easier and it keeps track of everything. And yeah, this bookkeeping for rental property management software also handles rent payments themselves. So tenants can pay through the platform securely, and I get notified when payments land. What I really liked was the ability to automate reminders. Helps reduce awkward late payment conversations. And when I got on with Quicken next, I saw a lot of differences. And it instantly became obvious that this property management bookkeeping platform is a totally different beast. So while TurboTenant, I think, is all about simplifying property management, Quicken focuses on total financial control, and that includes rental property income and expenses. Want a separate budget for work, for holidays, or even just rental units? Done. It took me just a little longer to set up initially too, but once everything was just plugged in, I could really just drill into the numbers and focus on that. So setting up your first account with Quicken is really quick. Just connect your bank or investment accounts, and Quicken downloads your transactions, organizes all of them, and builds these spending reports. For landlords juggling personal and rental income in the same life, this really makes a big difference. So you can like separate categories or even create dedicated reports just for your properties. Quicken's automatic categorization is really impressive. It recognized most of my transactions, so that's like groceries, utilities, rent checks, even like random Amazon orders. And when it missed something, it just took seconds to correct it, and then over time it learns your habits and it learns these over time. Another tool I found surprisingly helpful while using this property bookkeeping tool was their bill and income reminders. So Quicken lets you plug in recurring bills or income like rent and projects your cash flow into the future based on the information you put in. So that's not just helpful for landlords, that can really be sanity saving if you're planning, right? They also offer quick pay and check pay, so you can pay bills directly through the platform. I did expect to use it, but it turned out to be pretty handy for paying contractors or utilities on the fly. Now, how do both landlord bookkeeping softwares stack up against competitors like QuickBooks or Baseline, for example? So QuickBooks, while powerful, can feel like overkill if you're not a bookkeeper or an accountant. TurboTenant, by comparison, is more lean, focused, and built for landlords, not CFOs. And Baseline, though modern, doesn't give you the lease tools and document control that TurboTenant does. And Quicken, meanwhile, wins, I think, for being like a hybrid. You can get personal finance and rental bookkeeping without switching between apps. It's this unique middle ground that neither QuickBooks or Baseline quite matches. But that doesn't make either Quicken or TurboTenants perfect either, and I wouldn't trust anyone who said otherwise. With TurboTenant, my main issue was that some features feel a little bit too segmented. Like, for example, if you want full automation on maintenance, that's an upgrade. And the screening reports, while super helpful, come at another small cost. But to be fair, I'd rather have those add-ons available than necessarily baked into a price that I'm paying every month, regardless of whether or not I use them. On the other hand, the downside of Quicken, I think, is more about the learning curve itself. Like, if you're not familiar with finance software, it can be a little bit intimidating and you'll take some time, ton of tabs, lots of data. But honestly, once you get the hang of it, you start to realize just how powerful the tool really is. And if you care about the intense details like I do, it really just becomes more of a strength than a weakness, and you can look and analyze everything even down into those small tools. And I think price-wise, both bookkeeping for property management companies fall into that reasonable if you actually use them category. TurboTenant is especially attractive because the core tools are free and you only pay for add-ons that you choose. Quicken is a paid subscription, but considering it's also your full personal finance tracker, I see it as like two tools in one. If you want the most up-to-date pricing and any discounts, check the link in the description. We keep it current so you always snag the best deal. At the end of the day, both bookkeeping for property management, rental property softwares were really high quality, and they make bookkeeping much easier. TurboTenant shines if you want property management and tenant tools all in one place, and Quicken, I think, wins if you want rental finances and personal budgeting side by side. Check the link in the description for any promos or discounts and get started today.